Treasure Planet was and is one of my favorite movies by far. The animation, the style, the characters, the music, it was all incredible, and it was a refreshing change from the princess stories we'd been getting. Don't get me wrong, Beauty and the Beast and Mulan are still two of my favorite movies ever, and I loathe the pathetic, spineless garbage that the remakes turn them into. But it was nice to have a change of pace from the regular formulas. It's arguably the best adaptation of Treasure Island ever made, although I think the Muppets firmly hold that crown. I mean, come on. For those of you who aren't familiar with Treasure Island, the story is about a young boy, Jim Hawkins, who is given a map by a dying pirate and goes to find the treasure, his main obstacle being the clever pirate Long John Silver. This story is very, very old, serialized from 1881 to 1882 in the children's magazine Young Folks under the titles Treasure Island or The Mutiny of the Hispaniola. The author, Robert Louis Stevenson, wrote it after returning home from a trip to America. He lived in Scotland at the time, and bad weather was keeping his family trapped indoors, so to keep his 12-year-old stepson entertained, he used the idea of a secret map as the basis for stories about a hidden treasure. The story grew and grew, and became his first financial and critical success, with many other authors drawing inspiration from what started out as just a way to keep a bored kid entertained while waiting for the weather to clear up. It was first published as a book in 1883, and has been adapted countless times since then, sometimes more traditionally, sometimes with their own unique spin, and sometimes in the just plain bizarre. Treasure Planet takes a sort of steampunk style with many things, like the styles of the ships and the clothes people wear having a more Victorian spin, but taking place in the dark recesses of space, with the entire universe as the ocean they have to travel. In this version, Jim Hawkins is a troubled boy who we're introduced to when he's out having some dangerous fun, racing through restricted areas and potentially lethal machinery. His fun doesn't last long as robotic police pull him over. His mother is clearly overworked and just doing her best, running an inn out of their home known as the Benbow Inn, where many species of alien come to rest and have a warm meal. She's friends with a canine-looking doctor, Dr. Doppler, who attempts to intervene and help when the police eventually show up with Jim, but fails rather badly at it. Jim's mother Sarah being told that if her son gets in trouble again, he's going to end up in juvenile hall. She tries to talk to him, but he isn't very responsive and has clearly given up on life and himself. His dark outlook on life seems to mostly stem from being abandoned by his father when he was a child. There's very little backstory given here. We don't know why, but it's very clear from the flashbacks we see that Jim's father was not attentive to his family, being distant from them even when he was physically present, and eventually simply left them behind to go somewhere else and never return, leaving his wife to try and pick up the pieces and raise their son while also running a business all alone. Dr. Doppler tries to help out and seems to act as a shoulder to cry on for Sarah, but they're simply friends, and Sarah even responds with ew when asked if Doppler was Jim's father, much to Doppler's dismay. But it seems like that help doesn't extend to financial, although he's clearly very well off. It's possible he's offered and Sarah has refused, but in any case, she seems to be struggling quite a lot and the inn is just barely keeping her and Jim fed at this point. Jim is sitting on the roof when a small, it looks like an escape pod, really, falls from the sky and crashes nearby, Jim rushing over to see if anyone's hurt. There's only one person on it, a large alien that looks like a snapping turtle, holding a chest. Jim helps him up to the inn, the alien barely managing to give Jim a warning, along with the contents of the chest wrapped in cloth, before dying. Just after he dies, unknown attackers show up, setting the inn on fire and blasting into the building. With Doppler's help, Jim and Sarah escape, but their home is burned to the ground, Sarah clearly at the end of her rope and not knowing what to do. Dr. Doppler muses over the odd device that the dying alien gave Jim, which Jim quickly figures out, demonstrating how intelligent he truly is, revealing that it's a map leading to what can only be Treasure Planet, the place where the notorious Captain Flint hid all of his treasures. Jim quickly declares it to be the solution to all their problems. With that kind of money, he and his mother could rebuild their home 1,000 times over. Doppler is clearly excited and more than ready to leap into the adventure, but Sarah isn't, terrified that she'll lose her son. With some assurances, she consents, so Dr. Doppler and Jim make plans to head into space. They charter a ship, the RLS Legacy, with a fast-talking feline Captain Amelia, and her first mate, the stony, stalwart Mr. Arrow. The rest of the crew are more of a motley bunch, mostly seeming to follow the lead of the cook, John Silver, who Jim immediately pegs as the cyborg he was warned about, although over time his suspicions seem to ease away. Silver's tongue seems to match his name, and he's always able to talk his and his crew's way out of trouble. He grows genuine affection for Jim, though, after Jim is placed in his care as a cabin boy. This affection seems to be returned, with Jim starting to see Silver as a father figure, one who actually teaches him and takes time to listen to him rather than just being in the same space like his own father was until he abandoned him and his mother. When one of the crew, a cruel arachnid-like alien named Scroop, tries to make it look like Jim was at fault for Mr. Arrow's death during a supernova, Silver talks Jim through his grief and self-doubt. When they make it to Treasure Planet, Jim overhears Silver talking to his crew, acting as though he doesn't care about Jim, which breaks Jim's heart. Even if we can see later that Silver clearly doesn't mean it, as he has a perfect chance to kill Jim and get the map, but doesn't take it. Later he has another chance, but he tries to talk Jim into joining his crew instead, with Jim refusing. Unfortunately, it seems that the map that Jim had escaped the ship with wasn't the real map. It was Morph, Silver's shape-shifting pet, that had disguised itself as the map. Jim has to return to the ship to disable the cannons and find the real map, having a final confrontation with Scroop, who gets kicked into the endless expanse of space. When Jim returns, Dr. Doppler and Captain Amelia were both captured, Silver using them as hostages to force Jim to use the map to find the treasure. They find out that the entire planet they're standing on is a giant machine, one that was designed to open a giant gateway that could lead anywhere in the galaxy, explaining how Flint just appeared and disappeared, and the core of the planet is filled with all the treasure he's stolen. Unfortunately, Flint's last act was to set up a trap, one that a robot they found was unable to remember because of Flint tearing out his memory circuits. Jim finds and replaces them, with the robot remembering too late about the trap that would blow the planet apart. The ship that Flint's body is on, covered in treasure, is likely the only way that any of them will be able to keep even a portion of the treasure, Silver trying to take it from Jim, but an explosion throws Jim off the ship, forcing Silver to choose the treasure or Jim. He chooses Jim, saving Jim's life and escaping with him, leading to one of the best scored, best animated, and most exciting finale sequences ever put to film, at least in my opinion, with Jim, Silver, Amelia, Doppler, the robot, Morph, and a few of the pirates tied up in the brig, making it out. There's a touching scene with Silver giving Morph to Jim, and Jim letting Silver leave, though Silver makes sure to toss Jim some gold and jewels for his mother after they destroy the inn. Jim's skills and intelligence earns him a place at the Space Academy, where he grows into a brilliant and respected man. Doppler and Amelia get together and start a family, with Sarah getting to see her son thrive and become the man she always knew he could be with a little guidance. Guidance that came, of all places, from a pirate with an open heart that came to take the place of Jim's father in several ways. The movie was brilliant. Not perfect, but really great, and I think it could have easily been one of the biggest Disney classics if Disney themselves hadn't kneecapped it before it came out. See, at the time, Disney was trying to quietly kill their 2D animation department and move over to 3D, which was cheaper to produce. In order to justify this, they would give the 2D animated movies almost no advertising whatsoever. No major merchandising, no promotions, no TV spots or commercials, nothing. People wouldn't know these movies existed at all, and then when it came out and hardly anyone saw it because no one knew it existed, they could point to that and say people just weren't interested in 2D animation anymore and shut down the studios. The same thing happened to Atlantis, which is also a gorgeous masterpiece of animation. Both utilize some 3D animation, mostly in the backgrounds or in the ships and other mechanical objects, but were mostly done in 2D, especially on the characters themselves, making them more expressive and fluid. Along with giving it very little advertising, only a few Happy Meal toys and a spoon in some cereal boxes, it was released at the same time as much bigger, more advertised films like Spider-Man, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, a James Bond movie, and Star Wars Episode II. Needless to say, it didn't make the money that would have been needed to be considered a success, even if it's incredibly loved and people sing its praises all the time now. Despite praise from critics and fans alike, Disney took it as a failure, canceling a sequel that was still in the planning stages and scrapping a ride at Disneyland, which ended up being reworked into the Finding Nemo submarine voyage in 2007. A couple of video games were released, but I've never played them, so I couldn't tell you much about them other than they exist, and I've heard less than spectacular things about them. I'm kind of glad they didn't make a sequel because it sounded cheesy, and the addition of a love interest that the school Jim goes to just seems, I don't know, unnecessary? I think the movie was complete, and Jim's story arc was well told. It didn't need to be expanded on any further. I'd rather see new characters going on new adventures instead of rehashing the same ones over and over, which is also part of why I hate the remakes so much. Disney isn't remaking their failures and trying to do a better job. They're taking things that are already good and people love the way they are and ripping the heart and soul out of them in order to turn them into bland cash grabs that people will buy because nostalgia. And I hate seeing it. As far as the designs and art direction in this movie, I love it. It's probably no secret that I love old-fashioned style and designs, and I think the future and past were mixed together wonderfully here in a believable way. The character designs were fantastic, too. Jim looks every bit the part of a rebellious teen that has a good heart but has been dealt a terrible hand. Dr. Doppler and Amelia, who are both very intelligent, if in different ways, mesh well together on screen, and their banter is just fun to listen to. Morph is pretty cute, and the designs of characters that need to be intimidating and scary, like Scroop, work perfectly to do just that, taking advantage of how most people are instinctively afraid of spiders and creatures that look or move like them to make him an instant source of unease. Silver's design is perfect too. His arm that he can use as everything from a normal hand to a cooking implement to a dangerous weapon. The futuristic and yet still historical peg leg. How he can come across as soft, warm, and fatherly, but quickly turn dangerous and cold. It's hard to get that across in design, and he blends them perfectly. And I'm not just saying that because of the massive crush on him I totally don't have and never did. You can't prove anything. Hey, don't judge me. Did you see how many people were thirsting over a lion with an emo haircut? Just because I, like a man who has a bit of life experience, knows how to cook and isn't built like a toothpick? Seriously, what is with all these dudes who are basically shrink-wrapped skeletons? I mean, come on. Look at Halcyon. The dude is literally a bear. He should have padding. Why does he have visible abs like some bodybuilder who's been dehydrating themselves for a month? He's a bear. Give him some squish. If I go out to dinner with a guy, I don't want him to say he's stuffed after eating a single grain of rice. If I'm going to be cooking for someone, they darn well better appreciate it. Anyway, the movie was fantastic on so many levels. The music, the character and set designs, the storytelling and pacing, so much of it was just told through expressions. You could really read into how they felt just by looking at their look on their face, which can be really tricky in animation, and I still think it struggles in 3D. It was exciting, heartwarming, and left me as a watcher feeling both ready to go on my own adventure and satisfied with the one I'd just been on with them. That's the way a good movie or book should make you feel, depending on genre, of course. I am so sad that it was used as one of the nails in the coffin for the end of 2D animation at Disney. If it had been given a fair chance, I think it would have been one of the biggest classics in their collection, with Halloween costumes, mugs, and all kinds of merch selling out fast. It's certainly gotten more attention over time, and plenty of people adore it now, but there's always the question of what could have been. Thank you for joining me for this one. The days are getting shorter and the weather is getting colder, so be sure to break out the fuzzy socks and warm sweaters, and don't panic if you put on an extra pound or two for the winter. Be safe, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next one.